Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our January 26th, 2023 TEA LEA webinar. Thanks for joining us. My name is Dr. Colegio. I'll be your host today. As a reminder, the chat feature is disabled. However, you may put questions into the Q&A and presenters will review your submissions, but there'll be no live Q&A today. Today's agenda includes the 2023-24 Dyslexia Grant Award Program, as well as the 2023-24 Innovative Services for Students with Autism Grant. And then finally, an overview of supports for LEAs addressing significant disproportionality. But our first topic is the 2023-24 Dyslexia Grant Award Program. And here to present on that topic is Michelle Reeves, our State Dyslexia Coordinator at the Special Education Programs Division.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to share my screen real quick. Okay, so hopefully you can see the Dyslexia Grant Award Program website.
Looks great.
Okay, great. So the 22-23-24 Dyslexia Grant application actually opened on January 25th and will close on February 24th. This grant program aims to increase an LEA's capacity to appropriately serve students with dyslexia-related disorders. Current recipients of the two-year grant that was for 22-24, same title, Dyslexia Grant Award Program, are not eligible to apply for this one-year grant. For more information about the grant opportunity, please go to the Dyslexia Grant Award Program website. I placed it in chat. Can they see that, or do we need to post it somewhere else? The link.
I can post something to the website afterwards.
Okay.
As well as this program is being recorded and will be posted as well.
Okay, so I'm going to take you guys, well, actually you see it, it's on the side up there. So this is the Dyslexia Grant Award Program website. And I just wanted to point out a couple of things. Eligibility, which we already talked about. And that, again, that's for school districts who aren't the current recipients of the two-year 22-24 grant. And then if you need to contact someone about the grant, you can go right here where it says grant application questions. And going back up to the top, that's the home page. This is webinars. We've already had 2 webinars. They are recorded, so you can watch them. The next tab is the application and timeline. So again, the application is open. You can click right here to go to the application. If you're curious about what the application looks like, we have the documents right here, and it is suggested that you go ahead and fill these out and then go into the application so you can put the information in as you go. There's information below about the process for logging in to the application portal. So you can see right here, and then also the timeline for the grant. Application options, these are the same as they were last year. If you're not familiar with those, option A is about applying for high quality dyslexia training funding. And then as you scroll down, there's some examples of training topics. And then what does high quality training look like? Option B is apply for dyslexia credential funding. And then again, examples of that, and then a list of potential training providers. It's not an exhaustive list. And you can also apply for both. So a district can do A and B, or just A or B. Oops, let's see. Already, okay, FAQ. Here's our FAQ. So you can go through that for any questions you might have. It also talks about allowable and unallowable activities. And I'm going to just take you right back to the home page. So once again, this application is currently open and closes on February 24th. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much, Michelle. And for our next presentation, we'll be looking at 2023-24 Innovative Services for Students with Autism with the Autism Grant. And here to present on that topic is Michelle Reeves once more.
Hi again. All right, so this is the Innovative Services for Students with Autism Grant application. This window will open on February 1st, 2023 and closes March 3rd, 2023, talking too fast. This is a competitive grant available to all Texas local education agencies for the purpose of increasing local capacity to serve students with autism ages 3 through 21. However, current recipients of the 2-year 22-24 Innovative Services for Students with Autism Grant are not eligible to apply. LEAs may apply individually or in collaboration with other districts or open enrollment charter schools. Prioritization of funding is given to collaborative applications. So also you guys will get the link to this as well. I'm just going to kind of scroll through and go through the tabs here. So this is the website. If you are interested in applying, they would like for you to complete this intent to apply form right here at the top. And then there's where you can click to complete the form. Notice the tabs for this website are right here in the middle. You can scroll down. You can see application requirements. To be eligible for a grant award, the LEA's application must incorporate evidence-based practices, data collection on student achievement and improvement, parental support and collaboration, use of technology, which may include interactive technology and meaningful inclusion, and then the ability to replicate the program for students statewide. And then over here on the right, you have your contact information. So if you have any questions, I'm going to go to the next tab, which is info sessions. So these are the webinars that they have had. They are recorded as well. And so you can watch those. The next tab is the application and timeline for the grant. And then they have application resources. You scroll down, you have the application preview, allowable, non-allowable expenditures, and the autism grant FAQ. Okay, let me just make sure. All right, so once again, this grant application will open on February 1st and closes March 3rd. Thanks for having me, Leo.
Thank you very much, Michelle, for joining us and presenting here today. And so our final presentation today is on overview of supports for LEAs addressing significant disproportionality. David Mapps, manager at TEA and from the Department of General Supervision and Monitoring, is bringing on our colleagues from AIR. And we have joining us today Sarah Benz, who's a senior researcher at AIR and project director for the LEADS initiative, as well as Elise Crossland, senior researcher at AIR and Universal Supports Lead for LEADS initiative. Stephen Prater, senior technical assistant consultant at AIR and comprehensive supports lead for LEADS initiatives. And finally, Carmen Martinez, senior researcher at AIR and intermediate supports lead for LEADS initiative. And so with that, David and AIR, you may proceed.
Thank you, Leo. So thank you guys for letting us be a part of this. We want to remind you that a copy of our PowerPoint and a recording will be available on TEA's website next week. So if you have questions, you'll be able to go back and reference it. So next slide. Our work really is guided by TEA's True North statement and the commitment to achieve equitable outcomes for students in special populations, and especially in this case, students with disabilities. On our agenda for today, we're going to start with some introductions, although Leo did a great job of introducing us. And then we'll briefly discuss what significant disproportionality is and the Texas determination levels in significant disproportionality. We'll also introduce you to a newish Texas initiative, the Leaders and Educators Addressing Disproportionality in Special Education, or LEADS initiative, and we'll share some of our services and resources that are offered through the initiative. Finally, we'll end our time together by highlighting other resources that are support local education agencies as you guys address SD in Texas. So TEA's Office of Special Populations and Monitoring is partnering with us, the American Institutes for Research, for the LEADS initiative. As mentioned by Leo, the work is led by myself, Dr. Sarah Benz, as well as Dr. Kristen Rudell. I have two of my colleagues that will be presenting today, Stephen Prater and Carmen Martinez. We'll skip the introduction since we were already introduced, but they will be sharing some resources later in the webinar. So we can go to the next slide. We thought we'd start first by answering a pretty basic question. What is significant disproportionality? So in 2016, the US Department of Education released their final regulations under Part B of IDEA. And so these regulations targeted the widespread disparities in the treatment of students of color with disabilities and put the responsibility on states to identify LEAs that have significant disproportionality within their schools. So SD really refers to when students of any racial or ethnic group are identified for special education, they're placed in more restrictive settings or disciplined at higher rates than their peers in other racial and ethnic groups in special ed. The regulations require states to use a standard methodology, those are their words, when analyzing representation by racial and ethnic groups in the identification, placement, or discipline of students with disabilities. So this standard methodology really requires states to use a risk ratio to analyze those disparities by race and ethnicity, again, in identification, placement, or discipline of students with disabilities. And it also requires Texas to set a threshold or a cut score above which the difference is considered significant. So in Texas, that threshold is 2.5. So in the next section, we'll really kind of break down what identification, placement, and discipline is as it pertains to significant disproportionality. So we'll begin with identification. So again, in general, identification really is that process of designating a student as requiring special education services. So when it comes to when we think about SD and identification, these issues may emerge as over-identification or even under-identification of students from certain racial or ethnic groups in certain disability categories, including those that are SLD, specific learning disabilities, emotional disturbance, intellectual disabilities, speech and language, or autism. So over-identification is really the inappropriate identification of a child who does not actually have the identified disability and who really doesn't need special education services. Contrasting under-identification is that failure to appropriately identify a child who has a disability and needs special ed services. So if there is a basis to suspect that a student has a disability and needs special education and related services, the student has to be referred for an evaluation. Parents or guardians must receive prior written notice of the evaluation and sign a consent for an evaluation prior to the beginning of any special education evaluation. It is extremely important for all LEAs to exercise their child-find responsibilities and never forgo this process because of over-identification concerns. Now, let's move on to placement. So as you know, a core tenet of IDEA is that all students are entitled to an education in their least restrictive environment. Least restrictive environment, or often you'll hear it as LRE, really means that the student who receives special education services must be included in that general education classroom to the greatest extent possible. Disproportionality or significant disproportionality in placement therefore occurs when students receive special education services in more restrictive settings at those higher rates than their disabled peers from a different classified group. We'll move on to discipline next. So disproportionality in discipline happens when one racial or ethnic student group is subjected to more instances of disciplinary actions than other student populations. So those disciplinary actions measured with respect to SD are out of school suspension and expulsion of 10 or days fewer, out of school suspensions and expulsion of more than 10 days, in-school suspension of 10 days or fewer, in-school suspensions of more than 10 days, and then total disciplinary removals, including in-school and out-of-school suspensions, expulsions, and removals by school personnel to an interim alternative education setting, and removals by a hearing officer. Now that we know a little bit more about what identification, placement, and discipline mean in relation to significant disproportionality, let's talk about how Texas makes its SD determinations for local education agencies. So as previously mentioned, hang in with me, we're going to do some math. As previously mentioned, Texas has established an at-risk threshold of 2.5. Each of the risk ratio formulas for identification, placement, and discipline are slightly different, but they follow kind of the same general formula. You'll divide the number of children from a specific racial or ethnic group experiencing that outcome by the total number of children from that racial or ethnic group enrolled in the LEA. Next, then, the number of all other students experiencing that same outcome is likewise divided by the total number of all the other students. The value for the specified racial or ethnic group is then divided by the value for all other students to yield that racial or ethnic group's risk ratio. And when that calculated number exceeds 2.5, then an LEA is determined to have SD within its district or schools. TEA does have a rather newly released resource that really describes the difference between how race and ethnicity are collected and reported at TEA, and I encourage you to check out the TEA SD website for more information on that resource. LEAs that then exceed that state established risk ratio of 2.5 for any racial or ethnic group will be assigned a designation as significant disproportionate. A first-year designation of SD is assigned as SD Year 1. 2 consecutive years in the same racial, ethnic group and category is assigned an SD Year 2, and then therefore 3 consecutive years is SD Year 3. After that, if an LEA does not decrease its risk ratio in the identified area to below a 2.5, or meet what TEA calls reasonable progress, it'll continue to receive an SD Year 3 designation in each subsequent year. There's no SD Year 4, 5, any of that. We often use shorthand such as SD1, SD2, or SD3 instead of saying SD Year 1, SD Year 2, or SD Year 3. Again, to learn more about how Texas determines or measures reasonable progress, take a look at the Results-Driven Accountability Manual. LEAs determined as SD3 must set aside that 15% of their IDE Part B funding for what's called Comprehensive and Coordinated Early Intervening Services, or CCEIS. In 2020, Texas established the LEADS initiative. Really, the goal of this initiative is to provide resources and services to LEAs that have SD in their district. So in the following slides, we'll closely examine the resources and services that you can access that are provided by the initiative, and then how you can take advantage of those opportunities. So LEADS really has kind of 3 levels of support: universal, intermediate, and comprehensive. And those are intended to serve LEAs as they address SD in their schools. The universal support level is intended to disseminate knowledge and awareness about SD. Really, the goal here is that LEAs will prevent significant disproportionality from even happening. So to that end, the LEADS initiative will be releasing several new resources in 2023 to support LEAs in addressing SD. We look forward to a white paper and an accompanying webinar on the overrepresentation of Asian students in the category of autism, as well as a toolkit for administrators on steps they can take to address SD in their district or schools. These resources will eventually be housed on TEA's website for disproportionality once they're released, so check that resource often. Now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague to tell you more about the intermediate service line.
Thank you, Sarah. We are now going to discuss the supports available at the intermediate level. For the 2022-23 project year, the LEADS initiative will conduct 5 workshops for the LEAs that are SD1 or SD2. The goal of these workshops is to support LEAs in addressing SD issues to prevent them from moving into SD3. For this purpose, participants will engage in independent learning and reflection, as well as collaborative activities and discussion to support professional learning on best practices for addressing SD. The workshops will include asynchronous learning activities to build the team's capacity to understand the complexities of disproportionality. Throughout the webinar series, LEA teams will engage in collaborative activities with peers on building the necessary leadership systems and competencies for addressing SD, also for identifying, contributing, and root causes, and for developing an action plan. Participants will be able to interact with national and local experts in disproportionality as they explore evidence-based resources to address disproportionality. We will also have communities of practice. A community of practice brings together people who share similar interests, work goals, or a problem of practice to discuss, share resources, and problem solve together. Our goal for this COP is to provide opportunities for you to engage in dialogue that stimulates learning and that encourages peer coaching, mentoring, and self-reflection. We believe that regular participation in a COP allows participants to freely exchange ideas and information, share experiences, and also generate knowledge and understanding of complex topics. Of greatest value, however, may be the sharing of experiential knowledge about how to improve, change, or implement policies and practices that could lead to positively impacting student academic and behavioral outcomes. This COP is designed to give LEAs designated as SD1 or SD2 the time and space to hear from expert speakers, talk with each other who are experiencing the same challenges and needs as you, and to engage in deep conversations that help move you forward on your path to addressing SD in your district. We have identified some discussion topics. However, the nature of a COP is to be flexible to the interests and the needs of its members. Texas lead consultants will participate in the COP meetings to help gauge the needs of the group and to respond accordingly. We will typically have a presenter share relevant information at the beginning of the meeting, and then we'll move on to peer-to-peer discussions. Depending on the size of the group, we may use breakout groups to dig deeper into our discussions. Now, let's take a closer look at the supports for LEAs that are SD3. I'll let my colleague, Stephen, take it from here.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I'm Stephen Prater, and I'm the lead of our comprehensive supports team. So we are the team of coaches and trainers who specifically work with those districts that are SD3, that have that SD year 3 designation. And as Sarah mentioned before, if you're a district that has that SD3 designation, then you have to set aside that 15% of your IDEA Part B funding for those CCEIS coordinated services. And we are a way that you can spend that money. So you can spend that money to partner with us to receive our customized training and coaching that we provide. So through our partnership, not only do you get the customized training and coaching, but you also you get a dedicated coach. You get access to the ESC staff. Our ESC liaisons work very closely with us, and there's also a community of practice that we'll touch on here in a little bit. And you'll have an opportunity to engage with some national experts to help you in your area of significant disproportionality. All right, next slide. There you go. All right, so this is just a big overview of what our training and coaching looks like. So when you partner with us, you're going to receive training on things such as building a team, looking at your data, defining the problem, identifying and finding that root cause, developing an action plan, and then developing a continuous plan for improvement. So through these services, we help LEAs know how to look at their data so they can monitor it for themselves. So that way you don't have to wait for TEA's designation. You will know by looking at your data if you're making progress and if you can be out of that SD3 designation in the future. When LEAs partner with us, everything is customizable. So that means they can partner with us for as long or as short as they want to. But what we try to do is help LEAs think about things systematically. So we want them to make those necessary changes to address their significant disproportionality that will carry on. So we want to help them make system changes. So we're still currently recruiting districts for this school year. So we do have limited space, but we are still recruiting. So if you are a district that's SD3, SD year 3, and you have a determination level of a 1 or 2, that's our main audience we're trying to partner with. Those SD3 schools have a determination level of 1 or 2. Please contact me, Stephen Prater, at sprater@air.org. If you have a determination level of 3 or 4, it's possible we could work with you, but we partner with TEA with those districts. But if you're a determination level 1 or 2, that's the main districts we're trying to work with. All right, and as I mentioned before, there is a community of practice that goes along with the SD3 districts, and just like Carmen mentioned before, mainly what this is used for is just for those districts who are all SD3. Just gives them a time to share their experiences, brainstorm, talk about things that are working and not working, talk about similar challenges. So it's just a way to connect with others who are going through the same things that you're going through. So it's meant to be a safe place for districts to communicate and form bonds and just gather resources from others that are going through the same thing. So that you can see the topics there. Just like Carmen said, we already have these topics that are kind of pre-selected, but the COP can be flexible. It can meet the needs of the participants as we go through. And during these community of practices, we always have breakout rooms where you can have more in-depth conversations among the peers. So if you join with us this year, you will have the opportunity to join this community of practice. We've already started taking registration for that. That started in December, but these will start pretty soon, I believe in March. All right, and so just to wrap up my little part here is these are the people who you can contact if you have more questions about these situations. So if you have questions or want more information about the SD workshops or the community of practices, please contact Janice Kaiser at jkaiser@air.org. And if you have more questions or want to join for the comprehensive services, if you're an SD3 district, you can contact me, Stephen Prater, at sprater@air.org. Or if you have other general questions or things you're not sure who to contact, you can contact that last email address there, support@txleads.org. All right, thank you very much.
Okay, so the LEADS initiative is charged with providing mostly intermediate and comprehensive supports for now. As such, the LEADS initiative staff work very closely with TEA's review and support staff to ensure that our processes and materials are well aligned. The LEADS initiative also is working to align with other statewide initiatives through our TEA project teams, as well as through the ESC liaisons. As we work to align with other state initiatives, we want to make you aware of several universal resources available. First, TEA's website for SD is a great resource. It is updated often with both policy notifications and clarifications, as well as LEADS initiative updates. We will later send you some of the links so that you can access the LEADS materials. These will be published in TEA's website. Another great resource for universal supports is your ESC. Some ESCs are offering a statewide general SD 101 training for LEAs that are interested in knowing a little bit more about this proportionality and how it is calculated. Check your ESC training schedule to see if SD 101 will be offered in your region. In addition, your ESC liaisons will be receiving SD training from the LEADS initiative staff, and they can serve as great thought partners and resources for LEAs with questions about addressing SD. Contact your ESC liaison to learn more about this partnership. So we would like to hear what you thought about this presentation or any questions you might have. You will be able to use a link later requesting feedback. And please, when you receive that link, complete the survey. Your feedback is really valuable and it will help us design future presentations. Thank you for attending the TEA webinar, Overview of Supports for LEAs Addressing Significant Disproportionality. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much to all of our presenters and the audience. Is there any closing statements from our presenters?
Yes, just as additional information, I would like to go ahead on and say that when we are looking at significant disproportionality, we do look at the primary disability as a way of the measurement. When we're looking at that risk ratio for identification, we are looking at the primary disability. And if you have any further questions, then please feel free to reach out to AIR, or you can reach out to me at TEA, and we will be ready, willing, and able to answer any questions that you may have regarding significant disproportionality.
Super, thank you so much, sir. And Carmen, you had mentioned a link for feedback. Is that located on the website, or where is that?
We will be sending you the PowerPoint slides and the links to all the materials and the evaluation survey.
Okay, perfect. So we'll get that posted to the website for you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much once again to all of our presenters, to our audience, and our next webinar is scheduled for February 9th. Have a great afternoon, everybody.
Thank you.